So honestly, in school, the biggest struggle for me was getting myself to study after school. Because here's the thing, in class, in school time, I never actually learned anything. I never managed to learn anything because my attention span was so bad that in class I would be lost for like 5 minutes randomly daydreaming about a video game or a girl I had a crush on. I'd come back to the class 5 minutes later and I'd be completely lost for the rest of the class because I'd have no idea what the teacher was talking about. And so because I learnt nothing in school, I had to do all my studying after school. That was the only time I had. But the problem was after school, I was so tired, so drained because school was first of all 8 hours long. We're in classes all day. Even if I'm not paying attention, I'm still in class. It's draining my energy. I'm stressed all day because, the high school environment, like everyone's kind of like in like a mini kind of like, it's a social hierarchy. You're trying to survive really. You got crushes on these girls. You're kind of nervous around them. You've got these guys who are like kind of your enemies. I don't know if this makes sense. If you're in high school, you'll know what I mean. This kind of like high school battle going on. It just drains you, man. And class drains you all day. But I used to go online. I tried to look for tips on how to study after school. None of that stuff worked for me. It said things like, go to a library, go to a different area to actually try to study. But bro, I was so tired after school. If I sat in a library to study, all I had to do was take my arm, put my head on my arm like this, and literally I would have a nap for like 30 minutes. So like good luck studying when I'm that tired. And the second thing is after school, there was just distractions everywhere. In my house, my family were doing random bullshit. My notifications would be popping off with my friends telling me to get on Discord so we could play Counter-Strike. There was just distractions everywhere, especially at home. It was so distracting. So I could never study after school. So I researched many different things. I tried a bunch of different stuff. And here I am about almost a decade later. I'm going to tell you how I managed to overcome this and how I actually can manage to study after school when I'm tired. Now, I'm not in high school anymore. So I was in university for the last few years. And back then it was a bit easier because I wasn't in school all day. But I can tell you how you can manage to actually study after school when you're tired. Well, this question is very commonly asked to me on Instagram. And by the way, check out the link in the description if you want to ask me a question or talk to me on Instagram. I'm very happy to talk to you guys, so feel free to. But on Instagram, people have been asking me like, how do I study after school when I'm tired? So the first question I can ask you is studying really the best thing to do right after school? Because when you get home from school, you've got from, for example, to say 3 p.m. till about 10 p.m., 9 p.m. So you've got about like 6, 7, 8 hours after school to study. Is right after school actually the best time to study? Well, here's the thing. Focus, your ability to focus and focus on your homework is actually a muscle. So your ability to pay attention is a muscle. The longer you pay attention, the more your focus muscle drains. And so if you're in school all day focusing on your class, focusing on random bullshit going on, your focus muscle is probably going to be very weak by the time you get home from school. So even if you try to focus, if you try to study, it might not be at the best of your ability. And just like your muscles in your body, you need to rest your focus muscle. And if you actually rest your focus muscle, your focus will improve. So actually the best thing to do after school might actually be to rest your focus muscle. So I'm going to explain to you that in a little bit now. But there's this book called Deep Work, a very, very interesting book. And what the author says is that some of the best writers in the world, the best creatives in the world, they actually only focus for about 4 hours per day. Because they focus at such high capacity, they drain their focus muscles so intensely that they need to spend a lot of the day resting. So sometimes they'll, do 2 hours of focus in the morning, they'll rest for like the whole afternoon, and then they'll come back and do another 2 hours. And let me check, everything's good. So I'm not saying only do 4 hours a day of focus, but it might actually be the best thing to do after school to actually rest your focus system, let it replenish, and then attack your homework when your focus muscle is fully recharged. And now actually the second reason why studying straight after school might not be the best is because there's this thing we have in our body called the circadian rhythm, which basically dictates when we get tired, when we get awake. We start to get tired around bedtime because that's our circadian rhythm dropping. And here's the thing. Most people, probably you as well, definitely me, we get this kind of dip in energy around the late afternoon. At least for me, in the morning, I'm energized. But as the afternoon starts to come around, my energy starts to dip. It usually happens around after lunchtime, my energy will dip. And then my energy will come back around late evening. So if you notice this, just think back to the days previously. if this kind of pattern happens to you where your energy kind of dips in the afternoon, it might actually be best to study when the energy is coming back up. So in the evening, even in the morning before school. Now I'll tell you how to deal with this if afternoon is the only time you can study. But what actually might be better is actually to just accept that studying after school is not the best. And it might actually be better to study in the evening. So for me, I always did my study periods, after dinner in the evening, like 7 p.m. onwards. In high school, I slept at like 10 p.m. In university, I slept at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. But I still, did my study periods often at night. Afternoon, basically, I just didn't even bother because it was very difficult to do. Now, again, you might think like, oh, bro, but I need 8 hours of study. But if you force yourself to do that 8 hours of study right when you get home, then it's going to be a kind of mediocre 8 hours. Versus if you took maybe 1 or 2 hours to rest and then attacked it for another few hours, that actually might be better quality than if you just tried to attack it straight away with a drained focus. So what you need to do is you need to rest your focus system after school. So, you might be hearing what I'm saying and you might think, oh yeah, bro, I can go play video games, man. I can go into scroll on TikTok after school, right? That is not what you can do because video games and social media are also focusing. So they're going to drain your focus system. Now, I'm not saying don't play video games, don't go on social media, consider it. But, at least me, as soon as I got home from school, I would run home from school in high school to get onto my computer and play Counter-Strike with my friends, like I said at the beginning of this video. So I definitely wasn't listening to that advice, but 100%, if you're playing video games, if you're on social media as soon as you get home from school, you're going to notice that you're going to be much less motivated to study afterwards. Your focus is going to be much worse because video games, social media, they do take your focus. So you need to actually be resting. You need to be defocusing. That's how you replenish your focus system. So just some ideas of what you can do after school. Bro, go to a sports club. Play sports, go to the gym. That's an amazing thing to do after school, playing sports. I wish I did more sports clubs in high school. I did sports clubs in university. They're beginner friendly as well, so you can go to those. Socialize, hang around with the people who are around after school, get your social reps in. Rather than running home and just lying on your bed or whatever, or just doing stuff on your own, actually socialize. That can replenish you as well. Or, go into the sunlight, go for a walk. And another big one actually that you can do is take a nap. If you take a nap, it's pretty much maximum defocus. Sleep is literally defocusing. When you wake up, that is when your focus is fully replenished. So, quick tip here on how to have a nap. There's this way to have a nap without actually falling asleep. It's called NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. If you look it up, it's very, very interesting. Basically, you listen to a script. And when you listen to that script while you're lying down, it puts you into a state of sleep without actually having to fall asleep. So search it up if you're interested. But that's what I used to do in university all the time, NSDR. So yeah, what you want to do is you want to basically find where your brain peaks in energy. It's going to be different for different people because we all have different chronotypes of when we're more tired and when we're more asleep. So for me personally, literally like right when I wake up, that's when my energy is peaking. And again, late evening, that's when my energy is going to be high again. And afternoon, I'm just dead. So know exactly what time you're going to study. Because there's this book called Atomic Habits. Maybe you know about it. It's a very famous book on how to build habits. And one of the methods of building a habit is called make it obvious. So what that means is you need an exact time when you're going to actually study and do your focus period. Because if you know exactly when you're going to study, it's going to be much easier for you to actually sit down and do that study period. So literally like be clear with yourself. Okay, 7 p.m. I'm going to sit down and study. But there's a second part to it. You set the start time, but you also need to set the end time. Because if you say, okay, 7 p.m. I'm going to study, then you're probably going to do an all-nighter because you haven't given yourself an end time. Because there's something called Parkinson's law where basically how long you give yourself to study, that's how long you're going to study for. So have a clear end time as well. So if maybe for you, it's around bedtime. So maybe you go to bed at like 10 p.m. That could be your end time. So have a start time and an end time. Go watch my video, how to study after school when you're tired. I give some other tips on this. In that video, I talk about studying before school. There used to be periods where I would study at like 4 a.m. before school. This was in high school. In university, I would wake up at like 9 a.m. But that is definitely an option. But if you want to study after school, you can do that as well. Or you could have 2 periods, an hour or 2 in the morning and an hour or 2 at night. It's up to you how you structure it. Put it around when your brain is at its strongest and have an end time. You've got your study times like, okay, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. I'm going to study. But the problem is that time comes around and your brain is going to throw every excuse at you to not go sit down and do that study period. You know, you're gonna be like, oh bro, we're tired right now, our brain, you know, Penrose said in his video that my brain's not at my peak right now, I can't study, bro. It's after school, man, I can't study. Or if the only time you can study is in the afternoon, you're definitely gonna be hit with these excuses. You're gonna be like, oh bro, I'm so tired, I can't study. I gotta go do my laundry, I gotta go, you know, play Counter-Strike. Basically, there's this book called The War of Arts. Very, very interesting book. It's about procrastination. This book I've read like 5 times. It completely changed my view on procrastination. All these excuses your brain is giving you to actually sit down and do the work, it's called the resistance. This is not like a Star Wars term or something, but the resistance is that invisible force that pushes you away from sitting down and doing your work. So the battle against procrastination, the battle to sit down and study when you told yourself to study, that's called the battle against resistance. Now here's the crazy thing. You've probably heard about discipline, right? Discipline is like the act of doing something when you don't feel like doing it. So if you like go to the gym when you don't feel like doing it, that's discipline. When you study when you don't feel like doing it, that's discipline. Battling resistance, that's what discipline is. So discipline is literally just the battle of you against resistance. The better you get at battling against resistance, the better your discipline becomes. So in a weird way, the goal of our life is kind of to, you know, constantly be battling resistance till we get to the point where we've overcome resistance so well that we're essentially the most disciplined person in the world. Now, the thing is, discipline is a skill. Some people are better at it than others. Some people can only study when there's a deadline very, very close. If you're the type of person who can only study when there's a deadline very, very close, I hate to say it to you, but that means you're not disciplined, because you cannot study when you don't feel like it. You only study when there's like something really pushing you to go sit down and study. So if you actually want to get more discipline, you want to build up this discipline skill, because yeah, discipline is a skill, then it's all about learning how to battle resistance, how to overcome resistance. So the second part of this book, The War of Art, talks about how to battle resistance, and it's called Going Pro. So basically the book talks about a distinction between pros and amateurs. Basically amateurs, you know, they essentially do their craft, they do their work only when they kind of feel like it, when they feel inspired to do it. But this book distinguishes with the pro. The pro is someone who turns up no matter what. So essentially what it means to go pro with your study habit is it means to treat it like a job, a full-time job. So with your job, it's the same time every single day. You turn up no matter how you feel, whether you're, you know, dead, not dead, but whether you're like super tired, whether you're sick, whether you're not feeling like it, you always turn up and you stay there for the entire period. That's how you approach your job. So if you can approach this study period that you've created as a pro, as if it were your full-time job, that is how you overcome resistance. That's how you be more disciplined. That's how you build the study habit. Because look, the hardest part is actually sitting down to study. You know, when you're actually sitting down in that study chair and you've got your work in front of you, it's much easier to actually start studying. The hardest part is the resistance. The hardest part is that invisible force that's pushing you away to actually sitting down and studying. So if you implement this GoPro mindset where no matter what, you're gonna sit down and study, that's how you overcome resistance. So I did this recently actually. So writing scripts, for example, this script is the most painful, difficult part of this whole YouTube video making process. And a couple months ago, I reached this point where I kept procrastinating doing it. I didn't want to do it. I would always push it off till the end of the day. And I reread this book and I realized, okay, I need to go pro when it comes to making these YouTube videos. So I put the same time every single morning, and I told myself that no matter what, I'm gonna sit down at that time and write a script. And look, there were some days when I would sit down and I would have no inspiration. I couldn't write anything. There were other days where I would write like an entire script and I'd delete it because I thought it was trash. But what ended up happening is the more I would actually sit down and write the script, the more inspiration would come to me, the more energy would come to me, the more motivation would come to me. So when you tell your body, nah bro, no matter what you tell me, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna do this work, it starts to accept that as a reality, and it starts to give you motivation, it starts to give you inspiration, it starts to help you. Like there's this quote from the book that I really like. It's like, I only write when I'm inspired, but luckily I'm inspired every morning at 9 a.m. So what that quote says is, inspiration is not something that you wait to hit you. It's something that you actually have to cultivate through habit, through going pro. And I find that very, very interesting. So go pro, sit down, put your body in the chair. If your mind goes somewhere else, if you are in a different world, that's fine. It's all about overcoming resistance and sitting in the chair. So in a weird way, you need to give yourself permission to be bored. You have to give yourself permission that as long as you're sitting down for that period of time, you have overcome resistance. You know, even if you're not working at full capacity, even if you're not working, that's fine. Just be bored. You know, it's very difficult for us to sit down and be bored for like 10 minutes, right? So if you sit down on your chair and you give yourself permission to be bored for 1 hour, it's not gonna happen. After 10 minutes, you're gonna like think, okay, I'm here, I may as well do the work. Or you're gonna come up with a plan to do the work. You're gonna actually start taking action. So the most important thing is just sitting yourself down in that chair. Now that doesn't mean sit down and start going on Instagram or like sit down and start distracting yourself. What you need to do is you need to sit down and you need to like have your work open in front of you, or at least have like the website where you're gonna do your work open in front of you. You know, if you're not inspired straight away, that's fine, but the best thing to do is just be bored and sit there. Eventually the inspiration will hit you. Eventually you'll get into the habit of doing it daily. Now you might think, oh bro, but what's the point? You know, I'll get nothing done. I've got an essay due in like a week or whatever. Bro, if you've got an essay due in a week, when you sit down, you will be motivated to do it. And here's the thing, even if you're not motivated to do it and you sit down and do nothing, bro, you were already doing nothing before this. Yesterday you told yourself you were gonna study at 7, but you just scrolled on your phone for an hour. So you're already doing nothing. In fact, you were doing negative nothing. You were scrolling on your phone, which was tanking your focus, tanking your motivation. So actually sitting down and doing nothing for an hour is actually an improvement to what you were doing before. Because bro, if you were already studying at the time you said you would study, then you're not even gonna be watching this video. So I promise you, even if you sit down and be bored, it's progress. You're actually improving. So like I said, this is discipline, and discipline is a skill. So if you train your ability to be disciplined by going pro, overcoming resistance, and sitting down when you tell yourself you're gonna study, no matter how you feel, your discipline muscle, because apparently this is scientifically proven, there is a part of your brain responsible for discipline. And if your discipline muscle gets stronger, it's gonna leak into all other areas of your life. So if you become disciplined when it comes to studying, you're gonna become disciplined when it comes to building an exercise habit. So if you literally wanna be fit and strong, doing this will help you become fit and strong. You know, if in the future you wanna do really well in your career, you wanna start a business, you're gonna need discipline to actually sit down and do the work. So if you develop that skill now, you'll have it in the future as well. Now you can do this on your own, but actually, I've got an opportunity. If you want my personal help, if you want me to help you very, very closely, like take your own problems as my own, if you want me to help you very, very closely to build this study habit, to help you study better, to help you get better grades within a month. So if you want to, check out the first link in the description, click it. I will get onto one-to-one calls with you. I will DM you. I will help you very, very intensely to build this study habit and help you study efficiently and cultivate this skill that you'll have for the rest of your life. So check out the link in the description if you're interested. Otherwise, see you later.